Anytime you bring in a new body into an established group of people, then there's going to be some friction going on. Especially when the folks that were in place and are on top, per se, have to listen to a new person coming in. Now, y'all know how we don't like that. You know, you 50 years old and here comes a 20-year-old into your job site. And you got to listen to what this little young upstart got to tell you. And most of what he does do, you got to tell him. So this is the situation that we're dealing with. So Daniel was elected because of what King Darius saw in him. And as Daniel did his administration, Darius saw that this man was loyal. And to find a loyal employee is hard to do. It's hard to do. To find somebody that you can trust, somebody that's trustworthy. And so Darius decided to promote him from being the third president of this Persian Empire to becoming the second man in command under him. And folk got hot. All right, folk got hot. And so what they did was they got together and they had a secret meeting. And they plotted how can they get this man, Daniel, out of this position that Darius has placed him in. And so this is what we're dealing with here in this morning's lesson. We're dealing with a plot that was made by the administrators of King Darius to get rid of Daniel. And so it says, now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, and what the plot consisted of, it consisted of a writing. And these individuals, after much study, they determined that Daniel was perfect in all that he did. And it would be a hard thing for them to find anything negative about him. And so they spied on him. And they found out a place in him that could be violated. All right? They found a fault that they could use. So what they did was they devised a plan where they would tell the king, and they buttered him up, "O great king that liveth forever, we need you to dedicate a 30-day period of time wherein all of Persia would take 30 days to honor you as being God. And anybody that does not bow down and praise you as being God should be thrown into the lion's den." And so they got the king to write, or to, I'll put it this way, they wrote it out, that if anybody did not bow down during this 30-day period and worship the king, they would be thrown into the lion's den. Got him to use his signet ring to put his stamp of approval on it, and it became an irrevocable law. Irrevocable. which meant that the king himself could not rescind what he had put in place. And so this is what Daniel learned about, this writing that was signed. He went into his house knowing that this decree had been signed, and his window being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem. He kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. Daniel did exactly what he has always done. He stuck to this particular thing of praying to his God 3 times a day. Verse 11, then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. And so they set a trap for Daniel. And I think all of us as human beings know about people setting traps for us. I've had folks set traps for me. And I'm pretty sure you all have had traps set for you. And when people set traps, feelings get hurt, friendships get broke up. We go through all kinds of changes. We get revengeful. And so Daniel finds himself being persecuted for something that is right for him to do, but is being called wrong by those who don't have any kind of love for him. And so people will lie on you. People will lie on you. I've stated in one of my past lessons that the United States has this thing now that people can lie on you all they want. Boldly lie on you and make all kinds of false accusations against you. And they will not be prosecuted unless you can prove that they are lying. You got to go into debt to get a legal team to talk for you before this lame government so that you can be free from somebody accusing you of something that you did not do. All right? And a lot of people, they will lose face as far as favor from people, because people will hear what folks say about you and they'll take it for face value. They'll take it for face value. And they will hurt your character. Character assassination, that's what they call it. And they will, like I said, they will mess up your finances for you trying to get out of all of this lying that they have done. All right? And it's just a barometer. It's a temperature checker of how far this nation has fallen from being moral. All right? At one point, a person's word was their bond. But now this is anything goes. And with AI today, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I was telling them about the new cameras, the new cell phones that have come out with the cameras on them. And some of you all might have seen the commercials. You could take a picture, and one of the people in the picture head might be turned away from the camera. Or they might have a a bad facial expression. And what you want to do is make the picture look perfect. So with AI technology, you can hit a couple buttons and turn their head the right way. If they had a frown on their mouth, you can make them smile. You can do all kinds of stuff. And we know with the climate of our nation, folks who trying to cause mischief and stir up a lot of strife and envy and all this type of stuff. They're putting pictures out on media platform, and we see it. And I was looking at them. And I'm looking at all these men kissing men and all of these pictures of doing different things. And then it looked like the Spirit said, don't get into this judging what you see. You can't go by what you see. You can't even go by what you hear in the morning. You can't go by it. The only truth that we're going to get is from God. So when we see all this stuff going on, don't become a bearer of false information, because people want to talk. And you can't talk everything that you see and hear in 2024. Not in this nation. You can't do it. And so that's why I always said that if you're going to do any kind of research, make sure you pull no less than 3 different sources to make sure that you tell the truth. And still pray behind that is the truth. Because right now, they got stuff that can throw you off. There's so much confusion and stuff leading up to this presidential election that nobody really knows who they're going to vote for. Because it's too much negativity going on. Too much negativity. I had made up in my mind that I was going to call this country the Divided States of America. It's not the United States no more. It's the Divided States of America. And the same spirit that divided us, this nation back in the Civil War, is working itself in this present generation, where there's no giving in, no compromise. What I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. All right? And that's what we're dealing with. And we're dealing with administrators, legislators, congressmen, senators, and all these so-called leaders, and all of them are confused. All right? The spirit of division is in this nation, and a house divided against itself will not stand. So that's what we're dealing with. And Darius wanted his administration to not be divided, and here it is divided. All right? Trouble has come to the table. Second subtopic, the king's response. This is Daniel chapter 6, verse 14 and 16. Then the king, when he heard these words, was so displeased with himself, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. Now this is really saying something here. When the king heard how that all that he had yielded himself to in listening to his advisors, had put him in a predicament where he ended up signing a decree that would put the most loyal person in his cabinet in harm's way. This thing cut him to the core. Cut him to the core. And it says that when he heard it, it cut his heart, and it set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. He started to try to think up, what can I do to reverse this irrevocable decree that I have made? Now, this was something that was embedded in the Medo-Persian Empire, that when an irrevocable decree was made, that meant that even the king could not change it. This was etched in stone, and so he could do nothing about it. And it goes on to say, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him, being Daniel. Boy, the king was burdened down with this thing that was in place. He was up against his Goliath. And we're going to find out that even when pagans get to a place where they need a miracle, and I'm talking about myself, I used to be a pagan before I got saved. When you get to the place where you can only look up, then God is going to come out of your lips some kind of way. God, if you really who they say you are, help me. And this is the situation that the king found himself in. Verse 16, then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. King stayed up all night, didn't get an ounce of sleep. He executed in his mind every kind of anger he could come up with. And all he could do in the morning was put on his king clothes and go before those administrators and say, let's get the job done. That's all he could do. But we're going to find out that at some point during the night, I think the king ended up looking up. All right, let's read it. Then the king commanded, they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, thy God whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. King didn't say, I hope. He said, thy king will deliver thee. He was confirmed in his heart that Daniel's king would deliver him. And so, that being said, let's move to the next subtopic, the miraculous rescue. The miraculous rescue. When we get in a situation where we can't see our way and there is no way, that's when a miracle is needed. Daniel 16, verse 19 through 23. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. He wanted to see what had happened overnight. I can remember some sleepless nights couldn't wait till the morning to see the results of something that I wanted to work in my favor. And I believe most of us who ever had troubles, you don't go to sleep when you got troubles. And so the king arose very early and he went to that den of lions. Now back then, the lion was known as being the king of beasts. And lion is one of those ferocious animals. The very character of a lion is to be ferocious. They said that one of the ugliest faces you ever want to see is a lion when he opened his mouth and he began to roar. And if you could count the wrinkles in his face, you probably have over 200 and some wrinkles. And I found out that when people get angry, their faces wrinkle up. You ever notice that? A pretty face can get real ugly when they get angry. And it can ball up and wrinkle up. And lion was known for that, and he would show his fangs, top and bottom. And then he would roar. And a lot of people would faint. And a lot of animals, when the lion roars and he rears up and he hunches his shoulders, those animals actually become paralyzed. People become paralyzed if they faced by a roaring lion. And that's all he needs. He needs 1 second of you being paralyzed so that he can then pounce on you and take your life. And so that's what Daniel had to face in that den. It says, then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, servant of the living God. Now this is a pagan king talking about the God of all creation. You sound like you've been in church. Servant of the living God is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. That was a salutation that all the administrators would give to the king when they came into his presence. And I can imagine when the king heard that, I believe he probably cut some steps. I believe the king got happy. Verse 22, my God has sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me. They have not hurt me. Good news. I praise God for all the good news that I get. Good Lord. Thank God for good news. Have not hurt me. For as much as before him innocent was found in me, before God innocent was found in me. They framed me, being Daniel, framed me before the administrators, before the Persian Empire, and before God. When people falsely accuse us, they don't just falsely accuse us before men. They falsely accuse us before the God we serve. All right. O king, have I done no hurt? Daniel said, I've done no hurt. I was falsely accused. Verse 23, then was the king exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. The king ordered Daniel's immediate extraction from that den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. And so the account goes that while Daniel was there in that lion's den, Daniel picked one of the greatest weapons of choice by the believer. And that weapon of choice is prayer. Daniel prayed to his God, and God heard him in that den. And it says that God sent an angel into that den, and the angel shut the mouths of those lions, made them behave. And Daniel was there until the morning, and in verse 23, the king has set Daniel free. Hallelujah. Last subtopic real quick. A new decree. Verse 26, Daniel chapter 6, verse 26, 27. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. Darius made this decree, and the decree becomes law, that everybody would fear and they would tremble before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God and steadfast forever, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. And that's the king prophesying that the kingdom of God is going to reign forever. That's Bible prophecy. And so that let me know that Darius had to have yielded himself to the God of all creation to speak that, because that's the truth. Jesus prophesied that in the New Testament, and then the Old Testament prophets prophesied how that God's kingdom is going to be here forever. And it will not be destroyed by any entity. Verse 27, he delivereth and rescueth. He worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth. Who has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions? And so Darius began to do all kinds of prophesying and speaking the truth concerning what Daniel's God can do. He worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth. And who has delivered Daniel from the power of the lion? And so for that specific moment, Darius was a believer. And after this, Darius is going to do a couple more things under the obedience of God. But he's not going to be one of these folks who's going to stick with God. All right? Stick with God like Daniel. Like some people do. Some people, they find Jesus and they live in Jesus and they're blessed by God And then during the time they're blessed, they forget who blessed them, and then they're lured out of God. And a lot of that is going on today. In a great falling away from the faith. That's where we at. We're in a great falling away. And a lot of people have been lured by the enemy. Filthy lucre has become their gods. And they are not worried about the sheep. That's what troubled me. They have forgotten about the sheep, forgotten about the flocks. And some of them have skinned the sheep. They have wounded the sheep. And these times are one of the most prayable times during the history of this earth. Because we're in the book of Revelation, I believe. And my advice to all believers, or all folks, save yourself. Save yourself from this untoward generation. And if you save yourself, then you end up being a light to this lost world. Right? Because you'll be doing what Jesus called you to do. So that being said, that's the adult lesson for this morning. Thank God for the book of Daniel and how that in trouble, God came through for him.
A child saved is a soul saved, plus a life. Help one, teach one, be one. Our task is not finished until we reach our goal. Amen.